All right, we start with some people still struggling, others just now dealing with the brunt of the flooding. Statewide, people are struggling to stay dry and clean up after days of record rainfall and historic flooding. So many communities trying to recover right now.
So we have a cruise across the area, and we do want to begin in the south, in Morgan County, because that's where the White River is just now cresting today. It's been several days they've been dealing with this. Jenny Runovich is live near Mooresville, where people had to be evacuated overnight. Can you tell us what's going on now, Jenny?
Yeah, Felicia and Dustin, I can tell you it's actually a little bit better. This area in northern Morgan County, the White River crested around 8 a.m. and the water is slowly, a little bit, starting to recede. Actually, if you look right here on Smoky Row Road, all of this debris, it started here last night, and so it's a couple of feet better than it was last night. However, that doesn't mean much to the guy who was driving that car. Now submerged on Smoky Row Road. We're right near State Road 144. This road suddenly flooded and collapsed last night when a quarry levee nearby broke. Want to show you some video that a neighbor shared with us when that levee failed yesterday. You can see water rushing onto the road, into the fields, breaking apart the asphalt. The White River in this part of the county crested again around 8 a.m. and all that water flowing from the north ended up here. Drone Cam 13 shows just how widespread the flooding is here. Thankfully, most of it not in people's homes. Only about 10 evacuations in Morgan County. Still, farmland's taking a big hit. That's going to be expensive. So is Bluff Creek Golf Course taking a hit. From the clubhouse on a hill, you can really get an impressive view of the flooding. All the tee boxes, the flag sticks, the holes underwater.
And I've never seen the course be flooded like it is. The whole complete course is flooded right now. And by 5 o'clock that evening, we had to close the whole course. It ended up coming in that quick. Actually, there was people who only got 4 holes in, and by the time they got to 7, they got one of our golf carts stuck in the water. That's how fast it came up.
Yeah, it certainly did happen fast, but again, luckily, at least in the northern portion of Morgan County, the water is starting slowly to recede. The White River expected to crest further south a little later this afternoon. However, there is still a danger, and the county's emergency management agency wants to warn people, for situations like this. If you drive into floodwaters, things can change quickly. In fact, nearby this morning, there was a delivery driver that had to be rescued by boat, went around the barricade, went into the floodwater, ended up on top of his car until firefighters could come get him. So, any area of the county with floodwaters, just don't take that chance. Dustin and Felicia.
It can be and often is so deceiving.
Yeah. Yes, I was going to say, you just never know how deep it is, and the water changes. Anyone that's been around boating or a river, the water changes. Thank you, Jenny, so much. On the north side of Indianapolis, floodwaters reached the highest they've ever been.
Ever. Boats are still needed in some places, and not everybody can get into their homes just yet. One of the hardest hit areas is the Ravenswood neighborhood. This is just west of Keystone at about 74th Street, kind of north of Broad Ripple.
Yeah, our Ashton Hackman went back to Ravenswood today. Ashton, can you share what you found?
Well, those waters came up quick over the weekend, but they are taking its time to recede. As you can see, this is an area of Ravenswood still pretty much uncovered or covered up by water. You can see all of the debris that has been kicked up by these floodwaters, bottles of wine, a toolbox, pieces of wood, and a nice thin layer of what appears to be chemicals on top of the water. But so many neighbors in this area coming back to Ravenswood today to take a look at the damage that's been left behind. For some of them, it's just now beginning. Others are still waiting to get into their home. We went in with one couple who actually have to kayak to get back to their home. They say the waters went up well past their feet, up to their knees even. They are just trying to assess how much they have lost and trying to figure out what insurance will potentially cover. They say they have seen nothing like this after moving to the neighborhood less than a year ago. Now they say they are living through history.
The lore that we've heard from everyone was the flood of 91. It'll never be that bad again. That was the 100-year flood. Well, this flood was 2.5 feet higher than that one. So we're living through the history of the neighborhood at least.
Historic flooding indeed. And now many neighbors here are wondering what resources will be available, whether or not FEMA help. We already know that the governor has declared an emergency in this part of the state, along with so many counties. And this is one couple that hasn't been able to get home. But thankfully, there are neighbors in Ravenswood who have been able to see the damage up close and actually go back inside. We'll introduce you to one of them coming up at 5 o'clock.
All right, Ashton, thank you. And coming up here at 4 o'clock, we're going to be talking more about resources that are available to people county by county where people can go.
Yeah. Okay. Ashton, thank you so much. We're not just telling your stories, we're also trying to connect you to the resources you need to help pick things back up and put them back together. Our news continues. Listen to this.
Okay, so this is a look at Citizens Energy crews. They are near Keystone at the crossing. Specifically, this is at the River and Brant Road intersection. You can still obviously see all the flooding there. Our photographer spoke with a utility crew member at the scene who says the team is working on both water and gas systems in the area, testing it all, making sure it's all intact. And so far, we learned that all services are thankfully still intact in that area.
All right, and of course we are still tracking the weather. We have seen rain event after rain event, and it doesn't seem like there's been much of a break lately, Sean.
We're all still kind of grasping at what happened and the magnitude at what had happened. And we look at these numbers and still truly unbelievable.
It's incredible.
It really is. So let's take you back here. And mind you that an average August rainfall for Indianapolis is typically about 3 inches. This is a radar rain estimate just to show you this incredible footprint that stretches into the central part of the country, but certainly blankets a good portion of Indiana, central Indiana, and certainly you can see the bullseye in the east central part of the state, but everyone got hit. And as they were saying, it wasn't just a one-day deal. This was multiple events. The big one in terms of the rainfall itself, the highest rain totals, was last, it's kind of running together, last Tuesday into Wednesday morning, where we had some areas that had nearly 10 inches of rain, 2-day totals a foot or more. And to put this area into perspective, in any given year, that's your percentage of that happening, 0.1%. So to say it's very rare for this to happen is an understatement. What was left in its wake, we had record crest in Anderson, Noblesville, and the highest crest in the northern half of Marion County since the Great Flood of 1913. We're going to take a break here through the evening, overnight, and most of Tuesday. We'll talk about the next chance of storms ahead coming up in the 7-day.
All right, Sean, thank you. Throughout this historic flooding, state leaders have been giving updates on rescue operations. They've been talking about cleanup efforts and also where to go for help.
Yeah, it's a mess right now, but this weekend we learned the president approved a federal emergency declaration for Indiana. 13 News State House reporter Emily Longnecker just got out of a briefing with Governor Braun and the Indiana Department of Homeland Security. So Emily, can you share what's the latest from the state?
So the governor said today that some areas of the state are still in a response phase, but others have moved into a recovery phase. And with that recovery phase comes help. Help, the governor said, would come through the state and perhaps more help from the federal government. Governor Braun announced today Indiana is asking FEMA for a second declaration, this one a major disaster declaration. If Indiana gets that, the state would receive federal money to help people who didn't have enough insurance or any insurance cover the damage from this flooding. Now, getting that declaration, the governor said, would take time. FEMA is here on the ground assessing damage right now. In the meantime, the state announced some immediate help Hoosiers can get right now from the state. People who've been displaced can get emergency housing grants to get into temporary housing. They can apply for that by calling 211, and there is more state help beyond that.
We want displaced Hoosiers to have a hot meal, comfortable bed, and get into air conditioning. So in addition to the IHCDA housing vouchers, we are activating the State Disaster Relief Fund. This fund will provide $5,000 in emergency aid grants to individuals. This will enable families to get the basics like clothing and food while they are out of their homes.
There are Hoosiers who are going to need help. Indiana's Department of Homeland Security says well over 1,000 people have been displaced because of that flooding. The governor's message today, the state has the money right now to get Hoosiers through the basics, to get them through this immediate recovery phase right now until they see if the federal government, if FEMA is going to come through with that major disaster declaration. So how much money could a declaration like that bring to the state? Well, the governor said there's no way to tell a number right now. That's going to depend a lot on what FEMA crews see and what they find on the ground here while they're here in Indiana. Dustin, Felicia.
All right, Emily, a lot of damage still being assessed here. The situation's kind of still really fluid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thanks. Keep us posted, Emily. And